this is the essentials to the movement that a baby needs to have for the foundations for everything. It's just like mathematics. If you don't know 1 + 1 is 2, algebra is going to be really tough. Most of the developmental movement milestones happen before complete closure of the skull. So the way I talk sometimes is different because it's new math, it's new science, it's new movement. What I want to start talking about is, again, where movement comes from, because if you don't understand where movement comes from, you can't improve it. And when we're working with our children, that's our only gain, is we want to change movement. Movement needs to happen before most neurological impacts that you see in a baby. So actually before a child really starts to talk, and I'm talking about starting to string words together, not mama, dad, ball, but really most of the cognitive things that you're starting to look for, right, that you can measure, the movement happens first before you start seeing those gains. The child should be into almost a walking. Why? It also has to do with the skeletal system. The brain really will start to fuse the skull between 9 to 18 months. And as you can see, most of the developmental movement milestones happen before complete closure of the skull. And that's why I do my cranial courses and teach all of the development that needs to happen. So when even the head shape is off, it's going to throw off the development, because the structure of the movement comes from the entire body, but really needs to come from the movements of actually the articulation of the individual skull bones to create milestones. Really, it's impacted. You'll see it tremendously in any of the sitting ups. So when you're looking at movement needs to happen from the get-go. This is why you really have to take care how much swaddling you do, or swing time, even car seat time. I'm not saying don't use those devices, but they have to be used for essentials and sparingly, not as a habitual, right? Because the first movements that need to happen are weight transfer. If the body does not have weight transfer, a baby, I can guarantee you that child will need services within their life, right? Why? Because we have many more bones, we don't have calcifications, and we have like an 85% water weight. So just mathematically, no matter what they do, it's through a weight transfer. If you see applied force, you can refer to it as a startle, a spasm, whatever. You really see that when they go down to bed. If that starts to happen, there's muscles kicking into the system, and once those muscles kick in, weight transfer stops. So we can't have that happen. It's a warning sign as to slow down, see what we're doing, and evaluate that child. You've got the newborn assessment for something like that. Another thing is the low tone, the floppy, those kind of things. Again, because the weight transfer is not coming into play. These have dynamics within gravity, yes, but I'm talking right now about these essential movements have to be in place for the brain to start learning from its movements, right? The difference of learning from movements is a movement that can transition or go from one movement to the other. And this is where weight transfer, see, I'm going from one movement to the other. And that's what it looks like first with babies, versus going into a purposeful movement or something like that. So it's a transitional movement. So it's not that my child's sitting up. My child has to be able to transition from, let's say, from the back into sitting. The transitional movements are much more telltale signs of your child's going into successful development. So this is why I do the Super Baby Boot Camp, is really to break down these things. Right? So this is something that you really want to share with friends, because this is the essentials to the movement that a baby needs to have for the foundations for everything. So foundation, what's a foundation? It's easy to say with a house. I live in a one-story foundation. I'm right off an artificial lake. There's no way you can build a high-rise, let's say, because I don't have the foundation within that structure, even probably to do a two-story, the way they poured the concrete slab, whatever. That makes sense, right? Babies have the same thing, even our children. But again, we need to move in and out of these functions of life, and it really starts at infancy. And even if you're coming to me right now saying, yeah, but my kid's 5, now what do I do? We still have to look at those foundational movements that are needed to go into their development. It's just like mathematics. If you don't know 1 + 1 is 2, algebra is going to be really tough, right? And sometimes it might seem like it's memorizing or whatever, but what it is applied practice. I should be able to do 1 + 1 is 2, lying on my back, standing up, reaching for a cup, all of those kind of things. The more way I can move through my mathematics, the more intelligent I am, right? The more ways I can move through my social interactions and what I'm doing with people, right? The more intelligent I am. It's when, I like to say this with like a high school player. They need 82 degrees, not too sunny, not too cloudy, not too windy. I did the perfect game, right? That will always be an immature player. He won't get out of high school. You know, it's the pro player that can play when it's ice cold, freezing, raining out, whatever. They still can step up and do their best game. We look at that as mental, that mind over matter. It's the way we move. If we have an exterior force that is breaking us down, whether it's emotion or environmental, meaning rain, hot, too, whatever, our system can't move. So when we're dealing with the neurology aspect of our intelligence, that movement has to be there. Now, you can say, oh, Michelle, look at Stephen Hawking. He didn't have a body, right? Stephen Hawking was Stephen Hawking. You know, he got, I think, first diagnosed when he was 21. He would have never been Stephen Hawking. Now, he's the only person I know hands down, that he says my body sucks, I'm going to go with the brain. Anyone that starts becoming impaired like that wants to save the body. So even though he was a shell of a human being, he lived till he was, 76 and a half? Sorry if I don't know all my facts. An incredible human being, because he's just like, I don't need a body, I got my brain. It works pretty well for me, which is amazing. But a baby can't say that, and the foundational movements. So we're going to, like I said, start talking more about transitional movements, foundational movements, terms that I use, just because, again, I've just offered 21 new theories of gravity. Now, the book is You Can't Get to Mars Without Me, and it really is that simple. I really believe that if NASA and Russia and all that do not start implementing my theories, they're not going to get to Mars, because a human being can't stay in outer space more than a year. Now, I can't do anything about the radiation, but the way that I look at movement is different than anybody else. And putting together 21 theories and doing all of that, it's done in such a way that it really breaks down the details of movement, in a sense, and how we organize. Most people would just want the milestones, and that's all they know. So the way I talk sometimes is different, because it's new math, it's new science, it's new movement. Most science looks at motion, and that's what we discuss, the difference between motion and movement. But when we're doing all of that, so if you want yourself or your child to have a different aspect of a neurological or cognitive intelligence, the foundation has to be looked at as the overall movement. And this is why I look at the vision. This is why I look at the jaw structure, the facial bones. This is why I look at the pelvis. The human body is amazing, but it's also like a fine Swiss watch. If you have one gear that's too tight or too loose, it's going to affect the way the watch performs. Our human body is not much different, right? Our human body, not that it compensates, right? It counters. So just like if I had a bowl of water with not anything in it, it will counter to the horizon, right? But if I put ice cubes in it, now the horizon will adjust based off of where the ice cubes are, but it'll make automatic calculations. That's just pure physics. Our human body really is not much different than that. So enjoy. If you need me, guys, please schedule your Zoom, your consultation. If you really want to understand the movement, you got to get the book. You Can't Get to Mars Without Me. I'll put the link in. I ship anywhere for free, and then Audible and the ebook and all that on Amazon. But please, the regular boot camp, the Super Baby Boot Camp, and there's always the group Movement Lesson for Parents Practitioners. I did start a new group, Gravity and Movement, really to discuss, because not everybody wants to know the aspect of movement with movement lesson, right? They're not learning about gravity and they want to know about my therapy. That's not the point. So I have that group as well. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks everybody for watching. See you in a bit.